In this session, Dave will be looking at the work he does with his clients to help them become happier humans. So please give a massive warm welcome to Dave James.
Good morning, how are we doing? Good. One of the things I try and do when I speak is make an impression quite early on. And one of the things I've thought about doing is whether I get you all to stand up and hug each other. But some people will be going, no, I don't want to hug anyone at all. So I'm not going to do that. So instead what I'm going to say to you is, how are you doing? But before you answer that, I want you to really think about it. And if you've got a pen in a hand, I'm assuming you're all right-handed after Dave's stuff, or maybe left-handed. Which was the sexiest, Dave?
Left thumb.
Left thumb. So if you're left-handed, you're instantly sexier. Just take a moment just to note down. Whoa. Just note down how you're feeling, just for a moment. Just spend a moment doing that. That is one of the questions which I ask my coaching clients because it sets us up for a really good conversation. I think about how I'm doing, I ask them how they're doing. We know we're going to have a great conversation. And one of the things I also ask my clients is, what is it that you want to get from your life? And the three things they tend to say are more money, a bigger car, and a body so tight that you could bounce pennies off it. Where's Stephen gone? There he is. I've brought the pennies, we'll talk about that later. But the thing is that those things are very materialistic, they're very aspirational, but actually underneath that, there's one thing that people want more than anything else. And you've probably guessed it already, it's to be happy. And happiness is one of those things which is a little bit cliche. It's like world peace, and I could say goodwill to all men, but I know that there's lots of genders represented, so goodwill to all people. It's one of those things which is really cliche, and you think it's absolutely everywhere. But the reality is that it isn't. Now, I started having therapy this year. I waited until I was 50, so we got something to talk about. And my therapist is lovely. She's partially sighted, she has a lovely dog called Una, and I sit on the floor, which at my age is quite hard because I have to get back up again, and I literally just stroke this Labrador, and it's so therapeutic. The extra bit is that Trudy asks me questions as well, and I have to answer them. And we were talking about lots of things. It's great to have that space to be able to share where I am, to really be able to open up to a total stranger and not have that judgment. It's a beautiful thing about therapy. And there was one of the days where she noticed I had a real shift in my energy. And she said, what happened? What was it which changed for you? And I said, I've just had a realization that I'm not happy. And that was a really big thing. For the next 10 minutes, I had to pretend that I'd got an allergy to my face because suddenly my face was leaking and I didn't know why. But that was a real wake-up call for me because a lot of the work which I do is I help people to be happy. But suddenly realizing that you're not happy in that moment is quite a big and powerful thing. Now, I know lots of people in the room. Anyone who knows me probably thinks that I am quite a happy person. I'm always smiling. I'm usually laughing, and quite often I'm hugging people. Always with their permission, I just hasten to add. I don't do it randomly, unless you really want me to. But the people who really know me know that underneath that there's some much deeper stuff. Back in 1988, I was a 14-year-old, I was at school, and there was a lad in my year called Stuart Goff. Stuart was abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered in Hagley, Worcestershire. How do you, as a 14-year-old, with all of your friends around you, when you've literally been shifted from child to adult in an instant, and the universe doesn't even apologise for it, how do you process that? For me, I processed it with anger. I'm not a small bloke, I can go around, I can break things, I communicate with the world from anger. And it worked. But that was something which followed me right the way from that instance, right the way through most of my adult life, until I got to 2015, where my wife at the time said, I've had enough of this, you've got to leave. And she threw me out of the house. That was the best thing that could ever happen to me. Because it made me look at myself, it made me reflect on who I was, and it made me start to change my relationship with me and the relationship with the people around me. I'm not the same person I was then, not even close. If any of you are worried that this really hairy brummie is wandering around and it's probably going to growl at you, you're going to be okay. I'm more likely to hug you. But that moment where my ex gave me that choice was an absolute gift. And that is why I am standing here today talking about how to be a happy human. And I'm quite pleased about that. Hopefully you are too. When I work with my clients, there are 5 areas which I talk about. First area is authenticity. The second is meaning and purpose. The third is community and connection. The fourth is control and choice. The fifth is physiology and biology. I'm probably going to get the communication, connection, control and choice the wrong way around, but bear with me, it's the first time I've run this one. But I want to explore each of those with you because I think that they are going to be very useful in helping you along that path to becoming a happy human. Shall I wave for you now, Dave? I also just like to say as well, it's actually quite nice to have the warm-up act as the 2023 Speaker Factor winner. That is quite cool. I feel quite privileged for that. So we're going to start with authenticity. How many of you here would say that you're authentic? Yeah. How many of you are really struggling to be authentic? Yeah. How many of you are kind of doing both at the same time? Authenticity is one of those words which gets thrown around on LinkedIn without, people just talk about it. Be authentic. And then they echo that thing at the same time, which is just be yourself, which is both useful and useless in the same breath. Because obviously being yourself is a really easy thing to do, right? No, it's not at all. There's so many masks we wear, there's so many things which we cover ourselves up with because we want people to like us, and we want people to love us, and we want people to respond to us in a particular way. Authenticity, very simply, is being yourself, but in line with your values, living every day in line with your values. How many of you know your values? Room full of speakers, that's pretty good. Oh, we go. Values change, that's a really interesting point. How many of you don't know your values, but were really interested in finding out how? Oh, one person, there we go, cool. We'll talk later on. I know my values: love, learning, freedom, fun. They roll off my tongue all the time, and I talk about this a lot with people. Every decision I have made throughout my life has been in line with those 4 values. Every decision that I make from this point onwards is in line with those values. If we're not going to have fun today, I don't want to play. I will be put off it totally if we're not going to have fun. Love, learning, freedom, fun. Understanding your values and living in line with those every day is absolutely essential to be that authentic person. The second one, meaning and purpose. Meaning is personal, purpose is shared. Purpose of the PSA? Anyone like to shout it out?
Speak more, speak better.
Speak more, speak better. That's why we're here. We're here to speak more and speak better. But what about your individual purpose for being here? What's your meaning for being part of the PSA? Maybe it is to have a really good speaking business. Maybe it's to make $1 million by Thursday. I'm saying dollars because obviously we're international. Maybe it's because you know that by speaking about what's true to you, you can change one person's life. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Rachel, when you spoke earlier this year, you talked about the power of story in changing one person's life. That meaning and purpose is the thread which runs right the way through everything you do. And on those mornings where you wake up and go, oh my God, I've got to do this again. You think about that meaning and that purpose, and you can attach yourself onto it, and you can pull yourself through. So meaning and purpose is the second one. Third one, community and connection. I don't have to say much about community really, do I? I mean, look, the PSA, I stood on here, I got 60 seconds off Vic when I came here in May, which was brilliant, thank you. I stood on here and I said thank you to everyone because I have been welcomed in this community absolutely amazingly since January. I've only been a member for a year. They're shoving me as regional president for Birmingham next year. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll soon find out. If Birmingham's not here next year, that's why. Community is absolutely huge. To be part of something which allows you to be yourself and to be in touch with your values is amazing. Everyone who's in this room, even the visitors who are coming to us for the first time, will get an idea of what this community's like. But there is another part to the community and connection conundrum. God, I said that, that's brilliant. I thought I was going to mess up conundrum then. Is that actually we think about connection as being outward to everyone else. But what about the connection inward? What about that time that you spend connecting with yourself? It might be in meditation. It might be in exercise. It might be in just sitting peacefully. I was connected with myself outside while Dave was speaking. I saw Dave speak in Birmingham on Monday, so I know what he was going to talk about, by listening to one of my favourite songs, which is by Madness, because I know that takes me into my happy place. So I connected with me before I came on stage. The fourth one, control and choice. How many of you get up in the morning and you have total control and choice over what you do during that day? How many of you are working on it? I know when I was a nurse that I had control and choice over the work I did, until I didn't. I was a team leader for a trust in Walsall as a podiatrist. I had the opportunity to really shape my role into what I wanted it to be, until they changed the goalposts and I didn't enjoy it anymore. That was 2014. 2014, I handed my notice and walked away from it. That was the thing which earned me the most money, but at that point, I didn't have control over what I was doing. And now I realise it also didn't connect with my 4 values as well. I had a podiatry practice, which Stephen touched on before, which I ran for 8 years. I sold that in 2018 because suddenly I had created this prison which was trapping me. And it was really annoying that I created it myself and then I got stuck in it. I mean, how annoying is that? Who set this thing up which has trapped me? Oh, it was you, right. It didn't give me the control and choice that I wanted to do, and that's why I sold my practice in 2018 and moved into coaching. The process of going into coaching was really easy, by the way. If any of you are not coaches and you want to do it, it's simple. Go and change your profile on LinkedIn and say, I'm a coach. Because the world needs more coaches. But that control and choice piece is absolutely huge. If you don't have control and choice over what you do on a day-to-day basis, you're going to waste a lot of energy just living generally. Fifth one, physiology and biology. Give me a show of hands, who's gone for a little walk this morning before they came here? Who is aching to go outside at lunchtime and get some fresh air? Who's got some sunlight this morning? No, not in London, you haven't. Who was held off having coffee for an hour and a half after they've got up because they know that actually it doesn't do much first thing? You understand this stuff. How many of you got out in nature this week? How many of you have just spent that time connecting with your physiology and biology? That is a huge thing. So those are the 5 areas which I talk about with my clients. Authenticity, meaning purpose, community connection, control and choice, physiology and biology. You'll note I don't talk about finance. That's not my thing at all. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the room here who could talk about finance instead. It's not my thing. But what I want you to imagine for a moment, and who here remembers graphic equalizers on stereos? Yeah, come on, that's the old people in the room. When we take those 5 areas, and if you can push them all up to the top of that graphic equalizer, you reduce your chance of stress and burnout by a huge amount. When they're all the way down, you've got a real chance that you're going to be in trouble. And if you work with people and you serve people, stress plus burnout leads to them getting harmed. I remember that very much in my nursing days and my podiatry days. The aim of the game is to get those as high as you possibly can. Out of those 5 areas, some of you will have found something which stands out for you like a sore thumb. There'll be one area where you're going, I probably need to have a look at that. And I want you just to kind of keep a mental note of that. That's going to be really important for you. There's a real clue in there that you can do some work on that. The thing about happiness is that I picked the word happiness very simply because how to be a mildly contented person doesn't have the same impact on a slide. How to be a happy human is a beautiful alliteration, and I love a beautiful alliteration. The word happiness might not resonate for some of you. You might be going, happiness doesn't do it for me. Something else like contentment or joy or being pleasant. I mean, there's so many different variations of this. Because at the end of the day, happiness is one very simple thing. It is an emotion. It's an emotion which is there, and it's one we want to hold on to and we don't want to let go, but it's an emotion just the same as anger, or frustration, or listening to Dave tell jokes on stage when he knows that Jeremy's in the audience and they're not going to be as good as his. It's something which is there one moment and it goes. It is an emotion. But we always look externally for happiness. We always look at the things which are going to make us happy. When I'm with that person, I'll be happy. When I have that car, I'll be happy. When I have that much money, I'll be happy. But actually, happiness is generated very much internally. I was talking with a client earlier this week, and he said something beautiful to me afterwards, which he said, "You've totally changed my world," which is what I want to hear, and then I want him to pay me more money, obviously. But we talked about the idea of happiness being a ceiling, as something you aim for. What if happiness was the place you start from? What if it's the floor? What if you get up in the morning and go, "I am happy, what can I do from that place?" It's a big shift, and some of you might be going, "I'm not sure about that," and that's absolutely fine. But just like happiness is that thing which sits underneath that nice car, more money, and that body that you can bounce pennies off, there is something which sits underneath that. And this is something which I've only really come to find recently and actually found the word for it. And that is presence. I am very aware of how I feel on stage at the moment. I'm very aware that I am in London, PSA, which is a big region. I'm very aware that there's professional speakers in the room. I'm very aware that you're all judging me a little bit and you're going to give me feedback afterwards, and I want you all to love me. I'm very aware that my heart rate's up, which is why I haven't got my watch on, because it would tell me. And Siri's always listening, and she always says something to me afterwards as well. I'm very aware of the noise in the room, the air conditioning, the sound. Very aware that I'm being filmed. I'm very aware that Stephen's probably going to give me about a 3.5-minute warning in a moment. Presence is this beautiful place, which for me underlines everything. If you take the idea of being present in your day-to-day existence, and you apply it to those 5 areas I talked about before, it's cool, magical things happen. Because you don't worry about the past, you don't worry about the future, you worry about now. Presence is a place of connection to others and to self. It is a place of possibility. It is a place of absolute intimacy. It is just a beautiful place to be. If I'd have had the therapy session that I had earlier this year, where I realised that I wasn't happy 8 or 9 years ago, you would probably find me in a local Wetherspoons. I would not have been able to deal with the fact that I wasn't happy. I would have gone out of my way to find things which would instantly make me happy, that external validation. But being present with that feeling and understanding what was truly going on for me was huge. It's not something I would have been able to have managed a few years ago. So as I finish with my time with you, I'm going to give you a little challenge. Who's up for a challenge? Cool. I want you to spend the rest of your day being present with the people around you, with the conversations you have. Because presence, you will know when you're being present. It's normally when you're in danger, it's normally when you're seeing something exciting, or it's normally when you're speaking on stage in London, which is very similar to danger. But the best thing about presence is you'll know when you're being present because somebody will tell you. There's nothing like that feeling of being seen and being heard and being felt. And I want you to take some time today to be present with other people around you. And then I want you to ask yourself that question I asked you earlier, which is, how are you doing? Thank you for listening.